So let's plan this out just a little bit before I start spending money and trying to figure out where to spend the money. So this picture that I put up here is um, Bob Metcalf's drawing of how Ethernet works. And the whole idea is that there's this cable, which is actually usually yellow, and there would be an interface off of a computer, a mini computer. And I think when they originally did this, this was the Alto computers at Xerox PARC. And then there's a 15-pin interface cable, which is, we always call it an AUI cable, which plugs into a transceiver. And the transceiver taps into this thick coaxial cable. So the one job I had where we were actively introducing new taps into the Ethernet backbone cable was at the University of South Florida in 1993. I had come there from a couple other positions, and all the other places I'd worked had already moved past the thick net Ethernet stuff and moved on to either thin net or a combination of thin net and fiber optics. But USF still had this very large coaxial cable snaking through the ceiling. And then there would be extending from each computer. I had a Sun workstation in my office. There was an AUI cable that would run up into the ceiling, and the transceiver was connected to the cable. So if I were to draw something like this, you would see this thick piece of cable. You should probably use a thicker stylus. And they had terminators on the end. And terminator is nothing more than a 50 ohm resistor. And it would be sandwiched with these vampire taps. And they call them vampire taps because they have little teeth on them that dig into the cable. And then that whole thing would hook up into a transceiver. And I'll just write transceiver, XC for transceiver. And then there would be a special cable called an AUI cable that would connect back to the computer. And before that, before I was at USF, I'd always seen it done like this, where there would be something called a multi-port transceiver. In this case, it was something by a company called Cabletron. And they had something called an MT800. This is what we had at Rutgers, which was just a whole bunch of AUI cables coming out and connecting stuff. And then one would go back to a router. So you'd have a whole bunch of computers connected that way. So USF, like I said, was the first place I'd been to that had that. I subsequently saw this again. It was connecting lab systems at a local cancer hospital. So the first thing I want to get is one of these transceivers. And I asked around to old friends, I asked around the people I'd worked with for a very long time, and nobody has any. So it looks like I'm going to go shopping on eBay, and we'll see where that goes.